Let's see, the Public Works Finance Committee took a look at this. Is that right, a week ago?
That would be correct. We did.
Yep.
Me, though.
That's you?
Dan's admin.
Okay, got it.
We did. We looked at it. Tim basically gave the same report, and so it's good to hear it a second time. And I don't think we had a lot of questions at that particular time. It's an interesting study that you've done. It's pretty conclusive. And so obviously we wanted to move forward to council, and I'm sure that the fellow council members are going to have some questions. And of course, one of my questions, Tim, would be, it would seem to me that there's going to be just not even looking at the transfer station or the recycling center, that there's going to be quite a bit of upfront costs involved in the processors for each of the collection units, to say nothing of the totes. And I guess we probably haven't got to the point yet to where all this upfront money is going to have to come from. I know that the rate study will cover a portion of that, but I would imagine the startup costs are substantial.
Thank you. I would have liked to have Don Palmer appear in front of you, but as you saw, after his operation, he's limping around, and Leslie was giving him a ride home, so he had to leave when his bus was leaving. So I'll be covering that. Actually, the cost for instance, the route management system was budgeted last year in the 2011 budget. So we anticipated that. Additionally,
how much was that, Gary?
That was $75,000. And if you like, we can certainly highlight that and get that out. That would be a line item 64210 in your budget books. But that was intended to, or excuse me, I'm sorry, that is the rate study amount, $75,000 in the rate study. I just was looking through the information systems for the route management system, including other information systems, the computer that Tim uses and that sort of thing, was $76,780. Was the total for that line item. It was anticipated, what, about $58,000 for the route management system. And the council approved that earlier last fall. Tim's now working with LSI, the IS department, to identify the appropriate route management system. A bonus in this case is that one of the business ventures that LSI is involved in is in the Meridian waste system, Meridian, Idaho, and they utilize route management. So they have some experience in that. So hopefully that'll help out quite a bit. So those two items have been budgeted. Additionally, over the last several years, well, I should say for many years, we have accumulated a certain amount of money in contingency and fund balance. And as you know, last year we broke that out and put in a solid waste development line item, which has $250,000 in it. Whether or not that would cover a program such as developing a tote system or not, we would have to check. We'd take additional research. But we do have some seed money to do that. Now, that is not to say that there aren't other needs. If you looked at Tim's presentation, we have not begun to accumulate significant money for a new transfer station, if that's the route to go. We have not identified whether or not we will be participating in a regional landfill or not, so that would have to be assessed as well. So we have all those issues coming up. But we do have sufficient amounts in the budget, so we've got a pretty good head start on implementing at least the customer service parts of the system.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
Thank you, Mary Cheney. Gary, am I to understand that the $76,000 that was in the 2010 budget would pay for the entire waste management plan? The equipment for the trucks, the TV cameras?
I'll let Tim address that. He's been the one doing the research. Actually, it's less than that $76,000, Tim. The machines would be mounted in Latah Sanitation trucks, and I think it's 4 trucks?
How many trucks?
4. So there'd be 4 onboard computer systems. So I'll let Tim answer the specifics of that question.
Yes, Tim, we went out for an RFP to equip 5 trucks, knowing that we probably wouldn't need 5, and the bid came in about $92,000, I believe. There was a couple modules on there that we don't currently need that will drop that price down to around the $68,000 to $70,000 range. And also LSI is, I've been talking to them, and they're willing to pay a fair share of that, since they will benefit from the route management system as well. So
Don't they have more than 5 trucks?
for city routes, I believe they have 2 commercial trucks, and basically they do most of the residential with 1 other rear loader, and then they have a roll-off. So we'd be looking at equipping 4 to 5 trucks. Another thing to look at is this route management system. We're going to have a return on investment in very short order.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If I
Well,
can,
thank
if you
you.
don't mind, Tim and I tag teaming this. You just stand here. Also, we have been, Tim's been in contact with Latah County. Amanda Bashaw operates there or manages their solid waste system, and they're interested in route management as well. So it's another area of collaboration or cooperation with Latah County as well.
And thank you. What would how long would it take to implement if we choose to go down this route? It seems to me like a darn good way to recover some of the costs that we're not being paid for now.
The biggest part of this system is going to be an interface, and right now LSI is working on a new accounting software system that already interfaces with the Routeware system. The biggest part's going to be the interface between their accounting system and our Springbrook system, which we currently use in billing. And I went out for a couple of demonstrations on their accounting software, and they've worked with other municipalities and assured us that, you know, they can write an interface and make everything work. It was done down in Meridian, and they're set up pretty similar to the way we are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Walter?
Thank you, ma'am. Tim, we're currently losing 100 and something thousand per year in not being able to identify who's putting out 2 cans when they're only paying for 1. Piles, like you showed us in the picture, that you really can't figure out how many cans is that. Is that correct? 100 and what was your audit?
It was 121,000.
Okay. So the 76,780 price that's already in the budget for the route management system would stop the great majority of that 120,000 loss?
Yes, it would.
Okay. So
Well,
a 1-year payback on collecting that money. And then we've got your comment about the system would take out the guesswork by the drivers. I've never worked a garbage truck, I'll admit that. But I would guess, to continue the guessing, that a driver that's guessing what he's looking at is going to throw it and run. He's not going to sit there and try to sort through bills in bags and figure out this side of the pile belongs to Jones and the other side belongs to Smith, and they're over, I mean, he's not, and therefore, they're just going to grab it, throw it in the truck, and off they go. Is that what you meant by
That's
guesswork?
precisely what's happening.
And we're not getting paid correctly in your estimation when that happens?
Exactly. And part of the problem in the customer service communication between the city and LSI is, quite frankly, those collection people don't know what's supposed to be out there. They don't know who signed up for what.
Okay. If I may, to pick up on your comment about the expense of shipping water to Oregon, covered totes would preclude the great majority of that, just by having a lid on everything that's being dumped in a garbage truck to keep the water out of it, and snow, like today.
Exactly.
Okay. And totes, just if I may complete, your price of $35 to $40 per tote box, and 5,500 accounts. So one per account is about the $250,000 you've got in the bank. Thank you, ma'am.
Gary, you had a clarification?
Thank you very much. Yeah, just a couple of comments. One, I would say the audit is a snapshot, just like a survey. So to say that, I hope that it's accurate enough that we can say with some confidence that, yeah, we hope to recoup about that much money every year. But I think we also need to say, if there could have been a lot of other things that were done too. We could have gone out and policed it more. The philosophy of solid waste management in our community has always been, direction from the council and the elected officials has always been, we want a clean town. We want our ratepayers, our community members to be happy with the way the town looks. So that's kind of how this genesis occurred. Now, granted, with the pay-as-you-throw system, it should be more efficient, and that's what we're working on right now. Also, I want to make it clear, too, that the strategic plan is a look ahead. And what we're looking for from you is adoption of the concepts to move ahead like this. That does not mean tonight that we're looking for the go-ahead to implement a tote system. There's a lot of work to be done. It's got to be done in conformance, conjunction with the rate study. There has to be all of the billing issues and efficiency issues. So you're not tonight being asked to say, hey, we want totes. What we're looking for is the direction. We like what you guys have up here. If you have any other direction, we'll move ahead. But we want to be able to do that work and bring that back for a policy decision on the part of the council.
I saw Sue's hand up, and then you come back to you, Walter.
Several years ago, maybe 7, when Planning and Zoning approved that extension of C Street, there was a major remodel of the recycling center at that time. Was this plan, that plan?
What happened was, in the late 1990s, that railroad property was for sale, and the city actually purchased it from Helbling Land and Investment, I believe. It was purchased by the Helbling brothers, who owned the implement dealership prior to St. John Hardware. At that point, the opportunity came. We knew that the recycling center eventually would need to be expanded because of the community's use, and at that time we'd just begun curbside recycling. So at that time it was identified that we needed some sort of access. So C Street went in, and as you know, C Street isn't built to typical city standards. There's no parking on it. It's a fairly narrow street, and part of that reason was didn't want to restrict the traffic between Allman and Jackson, but wanted to have the accessibility into a drop-off area. So what happened when we did that, we purchased the property. Dean Wyan, our assistant city engineer, actually drew up a set of plans, just very basic plans, and that may be what you're referring to, Sue. But in 2001, so I think it was longer than 7 years ago. But in 2001, we actually took some funds from the sanitation budget and retained Castellacom to come in and do a very basic design, which is what you saw Tim had up there. But it fits very efficiently. There was a committee that assisted and looked it over. So it's a great leaping off point. And if there are other changes that need to be made, we can use that as a basis.
I just wanted, I have a aversion to doing great plans, putting on a shelf, and then 10 years later having to do it all over again and pay for it again. So I'm glad to see that plan being used. My second question was, who owns this route management system and the hardware involved in it? In other words, if we're putting this on Latah Sanitation trucks, and for some reason we decide not to do a contract with them next time, what happens to the system and what's mounted on the trucks?
And that's precisely why I've been working with them, and they're willing to pay for their portion of it. I would suspect that they'll pay for a good portion of it. They stand to benefit greatly from it. There'll be costs that the city will have to bear, like the interface with the two systems, working with Springbrook and that interface rewrite and all of that. But as far as the hardware, I think LSI, they're willing to buy that hardware. And I mean, they're taking the step to put in a whole new accounting software out there that will work with this. So they realize the benefit to both of us to put this in place.
Okay, and my last little thing was somewhere in this plan, I know, and this is probably an LSI question or an Andy Boyd question, but we haven't had a method to get rid of fluorescent tubes. CFIs, yes, fluorescent tubes, no. And when you're talking about polluting the groundwater and stuff, I've seen the tubes just go out to the transfer station and then just get run over by a truck and thrown in the landfill. So is there going to be something in the plan that deals with that?
I can deal with that directly. We used to accept those over at the Household Hazardous Waste Facility when I was at Whitman, and it's a very simple operation.
Good, because we've been waiting for that for years. Thank you.
Before I go back to Walter, was there anyone who hasn't asked a question? Dan?
Tim, you talked about the percent increase of use at the recycling center, and I wondered if that total tonnage, does that also include the yard waste drop-off?
I don't believe it did.
Okay.
Okay. Walter?
Thank you, ma'am. Gary, you just made a comment that approving this strategic plan tonight as it's being presented to us did not mean we were going to go to totes. Does it mean we're going to go to route management?
Yes, the council already made the decision, both in the budget and when it was presented to council, that route management we would move ahead on. The totes, the only comment I'm making on that, I'm not saying that we're not looking for direction to investigate and bring that proposal to city council. So again, it's a big decision. There are a lot of issues here that, you don't want to take your staff time and put it into something that the council is categorically opposed to, because then that wouldn't make sense. One of the reasons it was taken to the Sustainable Environment Commission, they reviewed it. They said, yeah, it seems to make sense to us, and that's why the recommendation's before you tonight. But you still have, the council still has the ultimate say whether or not we're going to go to totes or not, based on information that is developed.